If you're sick of bringing extra fuel or needing to stop and top off again when your buddies don't have to, then listen up. I want to give you 3 practical ways to increase your fuel range when you're out trail riding. The first one doesn't cost any money, and the third one will actually save you money in addition to using less gas. The first one is getting your jetting perfectly dialed in. And I say this as number 1 because I've ridden with so many people, or I've even ridden their bikes, and I just wonder, how in the world do you ride it like this? Throttle response is so unpredictable, it's hard to start, it just runs terrible. And even if you think your bike is fairly easy to start and it runs well, there's a good chance that you could fine-tune the jetting to make it start easier, run better, and use less gas so you can ride longer. And if you're a casual trail rider like me, you're probably spending most of your time at 0 to quarter turn throttle because you're only riding 5, 10, 15 miles an hour at a low to moderate RPM. This means that your pilot jet circuit is going to be the most important. It controls idle all the way up to roughly quarter turn throttle response, which means that it's super critical for starting, hot or cold, and for having smooth throttle response, and for getting good gas mileage. And to know if your pilot jet is too rich or too lean, you need to adjust the air or fuel screw, which I have a free guide, super short and practical. The link is in the description below if you want to download that for free today. Number 2 way to increase your fuel range is going with a larger gas tank. Most dirt bike models, you can upgrade the fuel tank to have an extra half a gallon, 1 gallon, maybe even closer to 2 extra gallons, which could give you an extra 30 to 100% more fuel range. Yes, it does cost money, and yes, it does add weight, especially up top, which makes the bike feel more top heavy. It's a little bit more exhausting to ride, so you gotta weigh the pros and cons to having a smaller tank where the bike is lighter and easier to handle, or for having a bigger tank where you get longer range, but the bike is a little bit heavier and harder to handle. Number 3 way to increase your fuel range is probably the hardest, but it can be the most effective no matter what bike you ride, and it has to do with how you ride the bike. For example, if you're always riding at a very high RPM and you're slipping the clutch to try and make the most power, you're going to be using a lot more gas than if you were riding a gear taller and a lower RPM. And there's a good chance that if you're riding at that high RPM constantly, you're going to be spinning the tire, meaning that all that extra power is just going to waste. You're putting more wear and tear on the engine, the tire, the chain and sprockets, and it's more exhausting to ride that way too because you have to hang on harder unless you have really good riding technique where you can stay relaxed. Some people can ride faster at that high RPM all the time, but for me, I found that riding at a mid-range RPM, keeping the throttle smooth, carrying more momentum, I'm able to ride just as fast, and I can ride a lot longer because I'm conserving energy, but I'm also using a lot less gas because the lower the RPM, the less gas that's being sucked through and burned through the engine because I'm not making as much power, but I also don't need that much power. I'm putting more traction to the ground, which means that I'm accelerating. So I may only need 10 horsepower at 5,000 RPM to accelerate the same rate as 30 horsepower at 12,000 RPM. This is one of the ways that I teach in my virtual dirt biker school to ride safer, longer, and faster. And if you're looking for the best mods or upgrades for trail riding specifically, you should check out this video here where I show you my favorite mods that actually make a difference and aren't just bling. I'm Kelly Fager from MX Hideout. Ride safe, have fun.